Julia enjoyed the happy autumn. The play they put on was a success. Julia felt alert and young. Tom was proud to be Julia's lover. It gave him confidence in himself, and he was pleased to be on familiar terms with a large number of distinguished persons. And Julia had the notion that Tom would um, get used to live in such a way, and that Tom would realize that he couldn't do it without Julia. Julia's reputation was so good that she never thought about that she needs to not that she not needs not hesitate to show herself with Tom in public places, and she looked upon her position so privileged that it never occurred to her that people at last beginning to gossip. And when Dolly heard that gossips, she knew very well that the only two men that Julia had there were Charles and Michael. Dolly had seen little of Julia, and it had been somewhat piqued by her neglect. At last, Dolly came to conclusion that Michael must talk with Julia about the situation with the gossips, and Michael chuckled at the thought of the joke. The evening when they came at the cinema, and that evening wasn't so good as Julia expected it to be. Next day, Julia got Dolly on her private number and invited her to came for lunch. And after lunch Julia and Dolly talked about the situation with gossips, and they parted coldly, and Julia thought about Tom, about what Tom meant by saying that she ate out of his hand. That deeply affronted Julia. And the next morning, Roger told Julia about their night with Tom. Roger said that he and Tom had spent a night with two girls, and Julia was depressed about it. It came to her as a shock when she realized that without even having really possessed with Roger, she had lost him. And Julia's pain was so absorbed that she could not feel anything about Tom, and when Tom went to Eastbourne with his family for Christmas, and Roger came to Vienna, Julia forgot about Tom. And when Tom shone into her dress room, he kissed her, and Tom even had not noticed that for more than a fortnight he hadn't seen Julia. And Julia talked with June about taking her for a job, but she decided not to take her for a job because of that fact that Roger spent the first night with this girl. And Julia was decided not to give a part in any of the place to Miss Avis Crichton. Yeah.